Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So guys, I need to do a continuation of the video that I did. It's called He Cares for Another Woman's Child but Not His Own. He cares for another woman's child or children but not his own. With all my uploading and everything, I realized that a portion of that video had not been uploaded as well. So even though it ended absolutely perfectly and it sounded like it was done, it was not. So I just want to continue here. So if you have not seen part one, please take a look at it. It just got uploaded yesterday for those of you who are just getting it. And now this is going to be part two of that video. And so what I was saying in the previous video, we talked about how sometimes, you have a woman may be wondering, why is it that this man who she's been with is taking care of someone else's children but will not take care of his own? And I gave you a few reasons. Sometimes that man just cannot afford to live on his own, so he needs to live with somebody with their children. And the other thing that I said is that sometimes this man may be more than capable of living on his own and doing his own thing, but he is not able to continue to do what's the right thing because he wants to spite you. He wants to get back at you. He wants to hurt you. So he'll throw his children in the fire, so to speak, throw them under the bus. He doesn't care about their well-being because he detaches himself away from his children. There are men who are in the world that just believe that as long as they're inside the house with you, they'll take care of the children. But if they're not with you, then they cut everything off as if you made those children by yourself. And then you just have some men that they're never able to take care. They were always irresponsible. A lot of times when you're dating them, at some point, whatever facade or whatever face they put on, you're going to see who they truly are. It's going to slip. And if you continue to be with a man when red flags are shown, whether it's the way he treats other people, whether he's a person that you caught him in lies, you find him to be disrespectful, whether to you, someone else, or abusive to someone else, you have to look at those telltale signs because you're normally seeing the beginning of other things. So while you were dating him or with him, maybe you thought he would be a good father, but he had other quality issues, other character issues that was very obvious. So if you keep pushing the relationship and you have a child with this man, now you're seeing that, okay, he is conditional when it comes to fatherhood. He has some stipulations and disclaimers when it comes to fatherhood, okay? And so that will begin to manifest through his behavior. So as I said in that last video, you have to look in the mirror. You have to look at yourself. A part of growing is to be able to take responsibility and be accountable for choosing this man. 9 times out of 10, there will be very few exceptions. Or is anybody just surprised? There will be normally things that were coming up that he was either able to explain away, you chose to believe it, despite repeated offenses or the very obvious. And so when you continue on this, you have to realize a person who has poor character in one area is most likely going to be the same in other areas. All that type of stuff is going to affect other things. Okay? So what I was saying, ladies, is one of the things that you have to do is just kind of move forward with your life and not be in a place where you're being dependent on this man to give you stuff and you have to depend on him for everything, because then sometimes they'll do things by deliberately quitting their jobs or not being honest about their their finances, playing games with you, whatever it may be. And you'll find yourself being in an emotional roller coaster with this person, constantly arguing with them, constantly fighting. And you're going to be so depleted and so frustrated that you can end up taking this stuff out on your children, neglecting your children. And another thing you also have to look at it and realize is you are able to do more than you can think. You may limit yourself. There may be many things that will keep you from doing the things that you need to do. You may feel like you can't. I have a child now, I can't do anything. But you can. There are many programs out there that you can better yourself. You can educate yourself. You just have to discipline yourself. And the other thing too, I would say is, if you have the support of your grandmother and your parents, you have that kind of stuff, you don't want to just drop your children off with your grandmother and totally put the responsibility on your parents, your mom or your dad, because they raised you already. They raised you and your siblings if you have them. Your grandmother raised your mother and probably helped to raise you. So now for you to come around with a child that she has to raise, that's not fair. So what you want to do, even if you have those helping hands, you want to be doing something with yourself to better yourself. You don't want to take things out on your children, because that way you want to be showing an example to your children. Whatever their father may have done that wasn't right, that's one thing. But what about you? And I'm trying to tell you, ironically, sometimes children will be harder on the parents that's always been there for them, because you're the one that they depend on. They knew their dad, or realize eventually that the father is just not going to be who he needs to be. But if you are there and they're seeing you present and you're letting them down, it hurts a different way. And then they tend to be harder on you, because you're the one that they were looking to for everything. So you have to be able to better yourself. And I will encourage you to pray and to ask God to guide you. You don't have to be a statistic. You don't have to be a person that's being ashamed or trying to rush and make relationships happen, trying to bring someone in the children's life because you don't want to seem as if your child is from a broken home. You don't want to be a single mom or anything like that. Listen, don't rush relationships, because there's a lot of people who have two parents inside the household where their life is living hell. Your child does not have to be a statistic. Your child does not have to be following and be a part of anybody's stats. When you pray and you ask the Lord to help you and to guide you in your life, to help you, when you come to terms with yourself, the choices you made and why you made them, and really ask God to help you, He can guide you. He can help you with your children. He can help you to raise your children and give you the patience that you need, not to be so hard on them. Because sometimes what happens, mothers can be very hard and very, very hateful to their children, especially if they have the face of their father. Your son or your daughter looks like the father, or they have certain mannerisms. It's called displacement. You begin to abuse that child. You also have to look at the reason why you have the child, because sometimes you may have had that child or want to get pregnant because you want to be with him. And so when it doesn't work out, now it's like, oh, I don't need this anymore. That's not how that works. It's not like a bag or a coat. You return it. It's a baby. So sometimes the motivation and the reason for having a child is wrong, because it was a way to keep him around. And then also, ladies, you want to look and make sure that your feelings for that man is gone, okay? Or it's no longer what it was. Because if you're still in love with him, then you're going to want to keep the drama going. Sometimes there are women, they still have very strong feelings for the father of their children. They're still in love, and sometimes it's not about the children. It's just to have an argument. It's just to be fussing. It's just to have a reason to be in contact. So you have to check yourself, check your heart, and see why you're doing what you're doing. And then, as I said, you can't force a man to have character. You can't force a man to have integrity. You can't force that man to have to have empathy. You can't force that. You can't conjure that. You can't make him be this way. He can't be a man of integrity, a man when his yes is yes and his no is no. This is a character thing. And whatever he's been doing and however he is, don't let him say it's all you, because then what does that have to do with the children? What did the children do to him? He has been that way. He has always been that way. And again, as I said, you've got to be able to look at what you did in terms of your choices and even the things you did. Because sometimes in response to what they've done or being angry, you can make some not so great decisions and choices and say some things. And the only way you're going to grow and be able to heal and to move forward and to see things clearly is not only to just always look at him and what he has done, even if he did the worst things, but look at yourself. Because who gave him access to your life? And why did you do those things? And if you don't know, ask God to reveal and show you in your heart why you did what you did. Deal with those feelings that you may still have for him. If it's still love and you still want to be with him, and it's all your arguments and all the things that you're doing and all your threats is because you still love him, then you have to be honest about that. Because he's not coming back. He may come back on his own terms, use you, and then give you another baby. Your focus has to be on your children now, on your child, on your children, so you can grow and they can feel safe. Other times you don't love him at all. You absolutely hate him. But you don't want to be driven by that hate, that you're being spiteful and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And there's this bitter battle that really, truly, even though you're talking about the children, it has nothing to do with the children, but to get back at him. And so these are things you have to deal with yourself, because it's going to affect you. If you sling mud and he's slinging mud and everybody's slinging mud, everybody's going to come out messy. So there are men, as I said, their whole reason for going somewhere else and being with another woman, and then taking care of their children and not taking care of his, that's a temporary situation. There are ulterior motives. There's no way a man can do that. There's no way that a man can go and ignore the seed of his loins and go and be with somebody else and take care of another woman and her children and ignore his own. Again, as long as his mindset is, if I'm with you, I'm going to take care of you. But if I'm not with you, I'm not going to. So if he does that, if he could leave his own children behind and not care for them, he's going to do that quicker. He's going to do that with her. He's going to do the exact same thing, especially when they're not his. And even if he does end up having a child with her, he'll leave that child as well, because that's something about him. But your focus has to be on you. Your focus has to be on growing and becoming a better person. And one thing that I want to say that someone said to me today, and I believe is a male. He asked me a question. I don't know if it was for him or for someone else. But in response to my first video, he said, what happens if if a man has to separate himself from the mother and the children because of the games that she's playing with the children? And I'm going to tell you something, ladies. If you play games with that man, he wants to be around his children. He loves his children. He's doing right by the children. But because he's not with you or whatever it is, and you play games with that child and you start to use his children against him, not allowing him to see them, doing things on your terms, you don't tell him anything, you want to bring the baby by all of a sudden or use the baby against him, because there are some women who are like that. They'll play games with the children. Okay? So they know he loves the baby, but if he's not doing things the way you want him to do things, then you're going to deny the baby. Not that he's hurting the baby. You're just it's like the baby now becomes a pawn to play games. And so if you continue to play games with that man, and maybe he has to go to work, he has to do something, you keep the baby from him for some time, but then you want to go do something. You just want to call him up and tell him, come get your baby right now. He's like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing well. You either come get him or you're not going to see him. Playing games like that. And he feels like he's going to lose it. Sometimes that man will end up separating from you. And ladies, I'm going to tell you, it's not at fault. If you play games with a man's child, sometimes that man, when it's a very dangerous game. I'm not talking about if he's being irresponsible, he's doing wrong, and you're doing what you need to do to shield the child. But a man who is truly responsible in every way, doing what he needs to do, and you're just being spiteful to him, sometimes that man will cut you and your kid off, and even his own seed. Not because he wants to, but he has to safeguard his mind and himself. Because sometimes there's men out there, so much will go in their head and in their mind when they think about you keeping their children from them or telling them another man is a better father and doing these things. That man could blow your head off, kill you. This is how murder-suicides happen. This is how people make rash decisions. And the only thing that man could possibly do is just to cut you off altogether. Cut you off and the children. Not because he does not love his child, but he has to keep his sanity. And ladies, sometimes that's the best thing. So don't play those games. Especially when you have a man, He may not be perfect. He may have done you some wrong, but if he's responsible with his children, or sometimes you have a man who loves you and he's been good to you, but you take him for granted, you can lose him. What I always tell these men, take care of your children. That man may pay child support and never come get that kid. Never, never again. Because all they could do is wait until the child is older and maybe want to know him. And sometimes if the kid grow up and because you have been pumping venom in them and they grow up hating their father, then you have to realize that man is still a soul. He's still a human. So if you don't want him around and you play games and he meets somebody and he's able to be a loving father to these other children, or in a relationship or have a child with someone, then that's what it is. In this scenario, he's not wrong for that. Is he abandoning his children? No, he's not. He wanted to be with his children. But if they're in your house and you have control and you're using them to hurt him, he has to stay away from you. So then he moves on, has a healthy relationship, gives the love, the fatherhood. I'm sure there's an ache in his heart for his own, but you pushed him away. So ladies, you have to be very careful with that. So guys, I'm going to end it here by simply saying this. When a man does not take care of his own, in the scenarios that I gave you, he's just not going to do it. He does not want to do right. He's doing everything not to pay child support, to be responsible. I mean, he's just nickel and diming everything. Most times these men are going to make that move because he cannot stand on his own 2 feet. It's not that he loves her and her children more. He just needs a place to stay. And if he could just be in there paying little tiny bills, not even paying bills. A lot of times, as I said, these type of men, they're gonna get some groceries, they'll do little things here and there, but they're not having any major bills. The second type is a man who is very successful, he's very capable, but you know what? He doesn't want to pay, he doesn't want to help you. He just considered, if I'm not with you, I'm forgetting that child as well. All right? And that's a character issue. So let your focus be on you. Check yourself in the mirror. Look at your heart. Think of how you chose this guy. Think of the red flags. Take responsibilities for your action. Look into bettering yourself so you won't have to depend on him constantly. Ask God to help you to regulate your feelings, whether you're still in love with this man and finding ways to just want to have a way to get to him, or you absolutely despise him and you're being driven by your hate, because your hate will cause you to really, really make bad choices. And when you're bettering yourself, guys, make sure that you're not letting your grandmother, when you're getting help from your parents, you don't want to put complete responsibility on them. You need their help, but you need to be bettering yourself and moving forward. Not having your grandmother that raised your mom and raised your dad, raise your mom or raise your dad and help to raise you, now come around and raise your children. That is not fair. They can help you. If you have that community to help you, great. Then do what you can. And sometimes you're just in a dark place and you need to pray and ask God to help you, because you don't want to abuse your children. You don't want to take the frustrations out on your children, especially if some of you just had the child just because you thought that will keep him. That will never work. So guys, hopefully you've stayed with me so far. I hope this helps you. Just always remember to look at the character of a man or even of a woman. Look at who they are. If it's not good, if they're a person that's always apologizing or making excuses or denying things, there are things about their character that you're going to see from the beginning before a baby pops up. All right, guys, thanks for listening.